Let's get more on all this with Dr. Kavita Patel. She's an NBC News and MSNBC medical contributor. Dr. Patel, great to have you with us. You know, what's interesting about Novo, it's got like a lot of things going on here. It has the Medicare, you know, the drug negotiation aspect, which could put pressure on pricing, but it also has the STEP trial results, which seemed disappointing because it wasn't as effective as its competitor Zepbound, and it's coming off of the disappointment of CagriSema. So what do you think in this world of Novo Nordisk is its biggest burden at this point?
Yeah, I think the biggest burden is what, by the way, the interesting thing about that drug list is that it not just had, you know, Ozempic, Wegovy, and Rybelsus, but it basically drugs that came out at different years kind of lumped them in for class effect, which I know Novo has, you know, there's suits pending, all sorts of things. But I think that's the biggest risk right there. When you look at the Medicare population and then the reach this could have, as well as the impact on the commercial market, for Novo, this is a big deal, kind of watching how these drug price negotiations shake out. And listening to how you all spoke before, you know, we're hearing Trump want to resurrect things like most favored nation. Melissa, that puts us into an even deeper conversation about deeper price discounts, not necessarily going easier on the industry. So I think that's the largest risk, combined with, I feel like a broken record when I say I'm waiting for the retatrutide, you know, kind of commercial launch, because if you think tirzepatide and Zepbound are better than Ozempic in the step-up True trial and Wegovy, you look at 3 mechanisms of action in retatrutide, and then you've got, you know, now we're talking about some incredible results that could put Novo in. I still think there's a market, but it just changes the dynamics of that market.
Dr. Patel, it's Karen, thanks for being on. If you're Lilly, how do you think about pricing now today versus yesterday?
Yeah, it's a great question. So all we have is to kind of look at what happened for drugs that were in the list that still has not taken effect, but that original list of 10 for the IRA drug price negotiations. Remember, just to remind people, it goes into effect in January of 26. But there we saw kind of a spread, you know, 38 to 79% reductions. And I think that's where, if you're Lilly, you're looking closely and just kind of trying to think through, well, if Trump comes in with kind of a most favored nation approach, then you're really hoping, and as the Lilly CEO has said, that might result in other countries raising their prices so that overall the U.S. prices are not much lower. But you're probably trying to do that calculus right now, depending on what you're hearing from Trump. And keep in mind, I think there's still so many uncertainties in how this administration, the incoming administration, would take action. But I was reminded again by staff who are career staff that they're the ones that are in the negotiation room. So there's a lot of political overlay, and certainly the Trump administration can do things, but they're still going to have a lot more control at the career staff level. So Lilly should just look to kind of how the negotiations fared last year and trying to handicap, well, where and how will we fare when we inevitably come into this market and position ourselves. I think they're doing that with these really interesting relationships on the telehealth side, looking at their vials. I think they're trying to think about multiple prongs to get to so many people and to overcome that employer resistance to cover these drugs at you know, the large group market.